Hi, this is Rhonda Rawlings with 1073 Jams, and I'm so honored to be sitting here with U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Wonderful. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. First of all, powerful speech. Senator Sanders just did a speech at the TD Center here in Greenville. Amazing rally. So many important points that you touched upon today. And let's start with talking about, you got a huge amount of applause when you said we need to be working for a living wage in the United States, not a starving wage. So you say
that is what I said, actually.
Rate
you heard me.
Yes, I heard you. I took notes. You said the wage needs to be about $15.
Let's be clear. In my state of Vermont and all over this country, we have people who are working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to cobble together an income and maybe some health care. And the reason for that is that the wages that millions of Americans are earning today are just too low. You could do the arithmetic. $7.25 an hour times 40 hours a week is not something that people can survive on. You can't raise kids with that. So my own view is that we have got to raise the minimum wage from $7.25 nationally to $15 an hour over the next few years. And I think when you do that, we'll create a situation where nobody who works 40 hours a week is living in poverty, and I think that's the right idea.
So another issue you touched upon was the Voting Rights Act. We know that the Supreme Court struck down a section of the Voting Rights Act, and you talked about how it is just horrendous to keep anyone from voting. You mentioned the poor and the...
Here's the story. I do politics. I mean, that's what I do. I've run for office many, many times. And I've lost, and I've won. But honest to God, it never ever occurred to me to say, okay, how are we going to win this election? Let's make sure that people over there in that neighborhood will not vote because they're kind of against us. Never occurred to me. If you don't have the courage to defend your ideas and say, okay, I think I'm right, everybody come out, and if I lose, I lose. But it just strikes me as political cowardice for people to say, well, I guess we can't win a fair election. Let's figure out a way that we're going to keep low-income people voting, or older people, or people of color from voting. That's cowardly. That is cowardly. And I've introduced legislation that would make it possible for everybody 18 years of age or older to be registered to vote. This is not a radical idea. This is what exists in other countries. And this whole business about so-called voter fraud and need these voter rights, we all know it's not. That's not true. What it's about is suppressing the vote. We've got to fight that.
Definitely ending voter suppression.
Absolutely.
Something else you touched upon, and my goodness, the crowd went wild, was you said, let's talk about racism. I'm not just talking about, people who hate blacks, people who hate gays. Let's talk about Michael Brown. Let's talk about Sandra Bland. Let's talk about Freddie Gray. Let's talk about Eric Gardner. You said these issues are horrendous, but let's be honest. You said these murders have been going on for decade after decade after decade. And you said, I will work harder than anyone. See, I paid attention. I will work harder than anyone to end institutional racism and deal with our criminal justice system. How will you begin to do that?
Let me pick up on the point that you made. As a result of gadgets like that video thing, we have seen a lot of police violence in recent years. This is not a new phenomenon. In fact, there may be less today, and who knows, than there was in the past. But with those cameras now, we're seeing it exposed. And I've talked to too many African Americans, people with college degrees say, I'm a little bit nervous about driving across the United States of America. This should not be happening in the year 2015. We have more people in jail than any other country, including China. This is pretty crazy stuff. It has everything to do with a criminal justice system which is broken. It has everything to do with the fact that we had 5.5 million kids in my state, all over this country, who are not in school, they're not at work, they're hanging out on street corners, getting into trouble. So we've got to invest in our kids and invest in education and invest in jobs. And you know what? You not only save lives, you save money. It's a pretty expensive proposition to be locking kids up. You could send them to Harvard University for less than it costs to lock them up. So I think we have to focus on that, and I think we can do that. In terms of the criminal justice system, clearly the people in prisons are disproportionately low income, disproportionately African American, Hispanic. We've got to be cognizant of that. We have got to, one of the things I think upsets many people, and again, I'm a former mayor. When you see on television police departments that look like occupying armies, How is this a local police department? Do you feel confident in that? I think many people do not. Minimum sentencing is an issue we have to look at. The use of force doctrine. There are a number of police academies that understand the police officers are trained not in the way to minimize violence, but sometimes trained in a different way.
Okay.
So there's a lot that has to be done, and I think we can do it.
Okay. One last question. I know you have a room of people waiting for you, but if you could talk to our listeners in the upstate and across the nation to say, I'm Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Vote for me because.
Well, I'm Bernie Sanders. I'm a senator from the state of Vermont. I would appreciate your support, and I would appreciate you looking at my record. And my record is one who I think has a 100% voting record with the NAACP, has been long involved in the civil rights struggle, but also understand that there's something fundamentally wrong when 51% of young African American kids today are unemployed or underemployed, who understands that it's more important to invest in education and jobs than more and more jails and incarceration. So there's an enormous amount of work that we have to do. I'm the candidate who says that maybe this great country of ours and our economy and our government belong to all of the people and not just a handful of billionaires. So study my record. Would appreciate your support very much. How's that?
That was awesome. This is Rhonda Rawlings for 107.3 Jams. For more information on Senator Sanders, log on to 107.3jams.com, click on Air, and Rhonda Rawlings blog. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rhonda.